Welcome back to Season 2 of the Mindwell podcast. This, of course, is your front row seat to the big ideas, the bold bets, and the breakthrough technologies that are reshaping the natural resources sector. Today, we'll be talking to Tim Vorage. He's a Dutchman and also co-founder of a company called 10Ops. They call 10Ops the Opportunity Company, and they specialize in turning opportunities into actionable operations with an entrepreneurial mindset, working to identify and capitalize on new business opportunities and helping organizations transform potential into success. As an international business analyst and an advisor, Tim's work is to help organizations apply unconventional strategies. I'd love to learn more about that to achieve, as he puts it on his personal website, extraordinary results. So, Tim, good morning and welcome to you.
Good morning. Fantastic to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. We met maybe a month or two ago, I don't recall exactly, at an innovation workshop where you were one of the panelists that talked to a big company about how to innovate internally, didn't you?
Yes, indeed. It was, let's say, about open innovation. And of course, let's say there are different views on how to deal with open innovation. So we shared, let's say, the experience that we have, let's say, and that we built over the last 20 years. What works, what didn't work, what are the ins and outs. So that is always, let's say, interesting to go into discussion with people that really embrace open innovation, as it sometimes is not embraced, let's say, by everybody at a company.
Yeah, and there are, of course, many obstacles, sometimes internally, sometimes systemic, and sometimes cultural, and so on,
Indeed.
Allowing companies to innovate. So I found your remarks really interesting, and that's why I invited him to join us on the podcast because, I talked earlier in the introduction about those igniters. And I guess that's what we often need help with. There are so many engineers out there who develop these fantastic products, and they've got wonderful ideas, but taking that idea into a practical business is not necessarily something they have wonderful experience with, nor know how to do, sometimes even don't want to do. And that's why we'll be giving them some advice today. When we talked earlier, you also said that you come from a bit of a mining area. Is that right?
Well, that's correct, and it's not a bit of a mining area. It's let's say last century, in 1902. I had to check that. The Dutch government started a company that was called DSM, Dutch State Mines. And
Right.
it actually originates from the south of the Netherlands, Zuid-Limburg, where I actually was born. So for 60 years, 70 years, coal mining was really present in this area. So you see that, let's say, there is still, let's say, a legacy around that. A lot of companies in this area, let's say, after closing of the mines, let's say the black gold, as we called it, they really transformed into other companies. I actually started my career at DSM, so I was also part of that transformation that originates from a company, that goes back to coal mining. And then, of course, you have that track, let's say, on the technical transformation, but you also have, let's say, the social impact and the social transformation. And sometimes, let's say, the technical innovation and the social innovation, they don't go hand in hand. So you still see some challenges here in Zuid-Limburg. Yeah.
Wow. So tell us a little bit more, maybe just to set the scene about your academic background and how you got to, well, I guess to do such an interesting job as leading others to take their dreams into reality business-wise.
Yeah, I think it started with, I was always interested, let's say, in technology. So I started, let's say, to become a chemical engineer at the University of Eindhoven. which I
Okay.
very much enjoyed. It was a lot about modeling chemistry,
Mm.
thermodynamics, developing new reactors. Um, and then after that, I did my professional doctorate in engineering in process and product development,
Mm.
which actually led me again back to DSM where I started my career.
Yeah.
Initially, I thought, okay, I come from this area. It would be too obvious, let's say, to start working there. Nevertheless, let's say an R&D director, let's say, asked me to join DSM anyway. So I started there, um, and I always enjoyed, let's say, the journey there for 15 years, going really, let's say, from R&D, yeah, with complex modeling of chemistry into scaling of chemicals, plastics, and then more and more into working with customers. So that analytical part has always, let's say, been part of with what I did um,
Yeah.
early on already, and I started to see that also that those analytical skills can also help you to break down strategies, to understand markets, to understand economies. Um, and that is something that I try to combine with creativity. It's part of who I am, connecting, let's say, things that would are seemingly unconnected,
Mm.
and that is, let's say, something that I took with me throughout my career.
That's really interesting, and I find it fascinating how companies such as mines, but of course not only mines, but certainly mines too, have this effect on the environment within which they do business, and it creates opportunities for people to not only learn how to do business, but also be educated, and then from there go on and do interesting things. So yeah, that's really that sounds interesting. And when did you um, when was Ten Ops founded?
TenOps was founded actually recently, let's say only a year ago.
Uh-huh.
But it was, let's say, built on, let's say, the work of 20 years experience. Um, I worked also at Mitsubishi Chemical Group. There I was able, let's say, to set up a global team,
Yeah.
really, let's say, embracing open innovation. And of course, there also cultural aspects play a role. Was able to set up capabilities, set up the team from scratch. Yeah, what is necessary to make open innovation happen,
Mm.
and all that, let's say, work I took with me in, let's say, the company TenOps, the opportunity company, to also see to really do this, let's say, for big corporations, for multinationals. So our clientele is from the chemical industry in plastics, but also up to metal, and even,
Right.
let's say, some other industries. And it's every day a blast, let's say, to work with these companies. And especially, and that's where we focus on the creative part, the entrepreneurial part, to do something different, and
Mm.
to challenge those companies, but also, let's say, to help them really put it into operations. And that's it's, let's say, where the real fun comes. If you see, let's say, the accomplishments and achievements at those companies, that makes it really worthwhile.
Right. So the kinds of companies that you work with, do you specialize in kind of engineering type industries, or do you work fairly widely?
It's becoming wider and wider. So that's, let's say, where we started. That's also where we part have, let's say, of a legacy. But now we are also invited by all kinds of corporates, mostly on the stock market.
Hmm.
Um, and whether it is, let's say, with chemistry or engineering, or even, let's say, in finance, um, the process that we have, the toolbox that we have, the way how we approach stuff, it seems to work, let's say, for all these type of industries. So our journey is broadening, and
Mm.
interesting. What you see in the market is that a lot of industries, they also become hybrid. They start merging. It's
Right.
medical with electronics. It's electronics and finance. So a lot of these industries are merging anyway. So where you have that classic categorization, that
Yeah.
seems to be blurring. That seems to be
Mm.
vanishing. Um, and that's kind of an interesting observation. It's happening. It also spurs a lot of creativity, I would say, because solutions in one industry They are now cross-fertilized into other industries. So it's actually a very interesting period to do this.
Yes, certainly. And, that kind of makes me think. The kinds of problems that you just talked about there, or the kinds of different audiences, they seem to be very varied. And, everyone always seems to think that their problems are unique. And of course, they are somewhat unique, but there are also good business principles that can be applied right across. Doesn't matter which kind of business you're in. And that has to be combined with deep industry understanding to unlock value, as opposed to merely creating efficient processes to run a business, right?
Absolutely. It's I think for a lot of companies nowadays, it has become more complex. It's not only about, let's say, developing technology and running your company. You also have, let's say, geopolitics to deal with. There is also an expectation of shareholders, of employees, of the communities also to be responsible and to take care of society. So that, let's say, that the expectations of a company, they also have gone up tremendously. And one of the former CEOs of DSM is that you cannot be successful or call yourself successful in a society that fails. So
Right.
besides focusing on technology, you also have these other aspects that you somehow, let's say, need to combine and need to take care of. And of course, there are also, let's say, opportunities in there for companies to also take that aspect very serious and somehow integrate it in solutions that they create for the future. And you're right to say it's not easy for corporates, but interestingly is that in other industries a lot of things already have been tried. And you also can start cross-fertilizing and seeing patterns across industries, what works, what doesn't work, and everybody, of course, try to make a differentiated position, a unique position. That doesn't mean that the process to address and uncover opportunities, look for open innovation, that is not the same. So what we see is that the process itself to uncover opportunities is actually the same for a lot of different industries.
That's interesting. I want to maybe do a bit of a role play here. Let's say I am an engineer working at a mine somewhere in Australia or Canada, and I've come up with this wonderful new idea to automate ventilation in the mine, or track people, or some other technology to improve safety, for example. And I know that I'm onto something good. I've developed the technology, or at least a product, to some kind of a minimum viable product. And now that's where I am. And I happen to hear your podcast on MindWarp, and I think I should give this guy a call. What do you say to that guy? The guy who's got this great idea, and he thinks he's onto something, but really doesn't know how to take it further.
It's, first of all, let's say, it's congratulations, because anybody, let's say, that is brave enough to come up with an MVP, I think that deserves an applause. It starts with also challenging, let's say, what he's doing, to really understand what kind of problem you are trying to solve. So it first starts with really understanding in depth what's going on, instead of, let's say, starting at the MVP and how do we need to scale it. So it also begins with a bit of a challenge of that MVP to really understand it. We have a workshop that is even called Evil Twin, where we are really making it a bit of a game, and also really to try to understand what's the problem that you're solving, how others would solve it. Are you really solving a problem? Are you solving the right problem? So that is actually, let's say, where it starts. So we don't go automatically to the next step, but that's, let's say, where we would focus on. And at a certain moment, if you have this really sharp, we also start validating it. And that validation part is super important, because sometimes you create an MVP, you test it in a certain environment. That doesn't mean, let's say, that it is as per definition scalable. So we also validate that MVD in a bit of a broader context, internally, externally. And at a certain moment, if you have, let's say, I could call it de-risking, really understand, okay, hey, this MVP is something that we can take further. Then we start also working with that person or with that company to see how we can, let's say, help them to really turn it, what we call this, turn it into operation, how you can make it scalable. And in the end, let's say, it's all about creating impact. So a proof of concept is great, or an MVP, but in the end, you are doing this to really make an impact. And that journey to make an impact, it is as important and also as difficult and challenging as creating the MVP, because it becomes more complex, more people are involved, you have investments, you can only spend your resources once. Is this MVP where you should, let's say, spend your resources, or are there other opportunity? So even to manage, let's say, your complete set of opportunities, that is super important, because companies that think they de-risk by betting on 20 opportunities are typically the ones that stay relatively mediocre in their results. The ones that select the right opportunities, really, let's say, do bold resource allocation, let's say, on the top 3 or top 5. Those are the ones, let's say, that seem to win. So we analyzed dozens of companies, mostly on the stock market, and also try to understand, let's say, why some of them win. And this is one of the key elements, let's say, why some companies tend to win over others.
That's incredible. So, so there is, in fact, more to the challenge than only challenging the product. There is, almost more importantly, challenging the concept and challenging its uniqueness and challenging to what extent it really has a value proposition, and not only a functional uniqueness or a functional use, right?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct.
So when you do this work, surely, founders and even large companies who are used to innovation internally, they must push back a little bit. They've got their own ideas. What do you find are some of the most controversial kind of paradigms you have to overcome in people's minds in order to understand that there's a different approach necessary to make a success out of the business, as opposed to making a success out of a product only?
People are very, let's say, proud on what they do, what they have invented, what they have created. So they can become defensive. It's part of it. I mean, our job is to give an outside-in perspective. That's also why we do the Evil Twin game. We really, let's say, try to address, we call this the inconvenient truth.
Right.
It's hugely important, because only then, let's say, you really can, let's say, make a step forward. So we also very much explain that process. And it's not a personal attack. It's something, let's say, that helps it to really make it better. And that's for a company, if we analyze an organization or the financial situation, or if we analyze and challenge an MVP.
Yeah.
This is a difficult process, because people are passionate about what they do. So we always, let's say, set the scene to make sure that they also understand, let's say, why we do this. And the sole purpose of that is, let's say, to make it better. Or come to the conclusion that this is potentially not the right thing to do. But it can be, let's say, people can become defensive. It's okay. It's part of the game. So it's and we try to also make it really into a fun game, but sometimes that there are some difficulties. Yes.
So you use this 4-step opportunity flow process that you describe briefly on your website. A quick scan, opportunity scan, concept and design, and implement and scale. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the whole process starts indeed with a quick scan. And a quick scan is really, let's say, an outside-in view on your company or on the MVP that you are developing. Typically, it's on a company. What we do is we have a process where we make an external analysis, and that goes into finance, that goes into your technology landscape, into the patents, into the applications that you have, understanding the materials, the technology. So all of that is being assessed. And what we do is we also use, let's say, AI to support us, let's say, in that whole
Oh, wow.
process. We actually create a digital twin of a company. So that is a virtual representation of what a company does, of their value propositions, of their offering, of their service models, of their finance, of their technology, etc. So we really put that into a digital twin. And then we start diving deep, trying to analyze outside in what are their strengths, what are they really good at. But also we start challenging in a wider concept to say, hey, you are in this industry. We see the industry is going that direction. We see that there might be a gap between what you are offering now and in which direction, let's say, your customers are going. These kind of things we address, and we also, let's say, play that back, let's say, to the company. At the moment, let's say that we go to step 2, and that's what we call the opportunity scan. We even go further. That also means that we go into an NDA. We also analyze, let's say, their existing data. We go into interviews to make sure that we really form a holistic view. So the outside-in view is then being combined with internal data, validated, let's say, with talking to people. So you really get this holistic, understanding of the company, the context, but you also see opportunities. And that is, let's say, where we have a couple of workshops where we use our digital twin to uncover these opportunities. And what we see is that of all the opportunities we uncover, we have an accuracy rate of around 85%. So that's kind of a nice way, let's say, to challenge a company, but also give other perspective. And of course, let's say then it's all about selecting this opportunity. So we have an opportunity readiness level, like you have a technology readiness level or manufacturing readiness. We have an opportunity readiness level. We say, hey, this is the top 10. In the end, after analyzing, it's probably these 3 that are of interest to you. And then we're going to frame these opportunities and also make a scaling plan to really put them into action.
Now, some of the technology companies that I've worked with over the years and that I know very well are setting themselves up to be ready for acquisition or to be ready for a next round of funding, or maybe even to find a final home, that'll allow them to go global. And very often I see in these kinds of companies that there's an explosion of ideas and semi-ready ideas in order to kind of be as attractive as possible to as many as possible buyers out there. And that can very easily lead to, a loss of identity, or just so much fuzz that they can't decide what to focus on. And this sounds like a very interesting way to kind of comb through those ideas, those opportunities, and to say, well, these are the top ones that you should really be focusing on. In order to not only have a big net, but actually have something that others and yourself would reasonably be willing to invest time and effort and money into, right?
Yeah, it's this process in the beginning of diverging, so to challenge the ideas that are already there, and you want to actually broaden that part. But then, of course, you also need to converge, and that process. You really need to automate also as much as possible, because you want to do that, let's say, in a high throughput screening mode. Because if you are a big company, it's hundreds, it's thousands, maybe 10,000s of ideas. So you can go, let's say, one by one and take half a year, let's say, to go through all these ideas. So that whole process, also making use of the digital twin, the opportunities are being put in there. You make an assessment, so it's partially data-driven, evidence-based, and of course you combine it, let's say, also with the wisdom that is available in the company. But that whole process opportunity readiness level, risk impact, screening, and then let's say putting bold resources on it. Yeah, that's a process that a lot of companies underestimate that can bring actually a lot, let's say, in to them. Yeah.
You know, as a technologist, I'm very interested in this digital twin that you're talking about. I'd love to see it sometime in action. But also, tell me a little bit more about that. Does that mean that you're able to simulate different outcomes based on different assumptions and then test some ideas? Is that the way that it works?
Yeah, so what you do is you first make a representation of the company. That is very important to really understand, hey, where are you at this moment in terms of technologies, in terms of culture, applications, markets, customers. And the digital twin needs to be accurate. That is very important. Yeah. And then we ask the digital twin, hey, let's start exploring new opportunities, new markets, new applications. Let's match it with potential new customers. And that is, let's say, where the magic starts to happen, where you really start uncovering, hey, wait a minute, we have a value proposition in industry X with this customer. It actually also would work if we tweak it in another industry, which unlocks potentially, let's say, a new growth bucket. So that digital twin, once we have validated, we also use it, let's say, to identify and screen new opportunities. And that, let's say, that works very well. So at the moment that you have set it up once, you always can use it, and it only grows. And it also starts understanding more about your company, but also the accuracy of identifying new opportunities and screening them, that also goes up.
So does that mean that you would, I assume for big companies that you would work over time with them for a longer time, ideally, in order for your model to become more and more accurate?
The start goes actually it goes very, very quick. So to build a digital twin, that's a matter of days. Yeah. To validate it together with a company, that's a matter of weeks. So that means that after a couple of weeks, you already start using it. And yes, we work, let's say, typically for a longer time with companies, because at a certain moment you start identifying opportunities. You see an accuracy level. You see, hey, wait a minute, this is working. And what's next? And what's next? And of course, let's say the accuracy grows over time, but it's actionable after a couple of weeks.
Oh, that's incredible. So we're running out of time a little bit here, but I do want to learn about the two last stages, the concept and design, and then the implement and scale phases. Tell us a little bit more about those.
So at the moment that we identify an opportunity, we did a selection process and say, these are the 3 ones that we want to focus on. We start creating a proof of concept. We always say, don't start boil the ocean projects. Define a project with a scope that is somewhere between 3 to 6 months. But the scope also should be representative, let's say, to be scaled. So this is, let's say, not new. So that is the, let's say, how we typically work. So phase 3 is all about framing the opportunity and making sure, let's say, that the design of the proof of concept is correct. And then we start executing that. That's also a way to de-risk putting resources on this, because at the moment that you are after 6 months and you say, hey, this is working, is it representative for scaling? Then we also take the next step, because a proof of concept in itself is great, and a lot of companies are good at creating proof of concepts. But if you have 10 or 20, that is nice, but it's not moving the needle for the company. It only happens when you scale, and that is, let's say, where the impact happens. So whether it is top line or bottom line or in culture or in strategy, it needs to be scaled throughout the company. And that's, let's say, where you really make the impact. And that is also it's a tough one. So to create a proof of concept with like-minded people in a bit of a safe environment, that is great. It's necessary. It de-risks. But then if you're able to take it to the next step, that is where the real impact happens.
Yeah, where the rubber hits the road, I guess.
Yes.
So this is really very interesting and very exciting. And I'm sure that there are many companies who would like to do this, especially having learned that it doesn't take years to go through such a process. You are willing to do these quick quick scan first sessions with customers for free. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, that's correct. So hereby we definitely would like to offer this. So the first companies, let's say that apply, we do this quick scan for free. So we sit together with them in an intake. We understand which direction they would like to go, but then we do our outside in quick scan.
Right.
So every company with a strong stomach
Mm-hmm.
and is looking to get an outside in challenge, that are not afraid, let's say, for the inconvenient truth that might, let's
Yes.
say, get on the table. We are happy, let's say, to do this quick scan. I think it's an awesome experience. So hereby an open invitation that we are willing to do that. We also are developing actually a training which is going to be launched in a month from now, where we also
Mm-hmm.
train people at companies to become an opportunity scout and an opportunity analyst. So we decided as a company that whole process that we do, we also want to make it public, to increase the impact of what we can do and also train people actually at companies. So if there are people listening and say, hey, that sounds interesting, I would like to apply for such a training for free. Yeah, then hereby, let's say they are kindly invited also to participate.
That sounds really exciting. Are you planning to put that on LinkedIn Learning, or do you do that at your, through your own technology? Or is it online? How do you intend to deliver that?
We have two
To
training
implement and
programs.
scale that, I should say,
Yes, we have two
to use
training
your terms.
programs. It's the first step. That is really, let's say, the Opportunity Scout. It's completely online.
Hmm.
So that is something we do that via our own technology. So that goes relatively quick. It's a certified program, but then in a next step, you can get, let's say, a more advanced course. That also, let's say, requires, let's say, some face-to-face time. So there you really put in some more effort. You also bring a challenge, for example, from your company. So at the
Hmm.
end of that training program, you also have a perspective on how to deal with the challenge or the problem that you brought, and really go from that quick scan part to the end of the line.
So that's fascinating, and all the best to you and everyone at 10ops. Thank you for your time. Before
Thank
I
you.
let you go, I wanna bring it back to a little bit of a personal angle. Tell us a little bit more about what what moves you in your personal life. What are you reading? What are you doing? Uh, what are you working on personally outside of 10ops?
That's indeed a personal question. I always look for new experiences. I love to travel. I love working, let's say, with other people or other cultures. I'm always curious to see, let's say, what is really, what's really on their mind.
Hmm.
You just ask, okay, what kind of book are you reading? I'm now reading actually the biography of Angela Merkel.
Right.
It's just fascinating, let's say, to understand how personal lives, the context in which you grow up, and that can be culture in your
Hmm.
country or the experiences that you have, how that also affects and impact your view on the world. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, these kind of things. Let's say it's just fascinating to me. I'm very curious by nature, so to understand what makes people tick. That is something that interests me a lot.
Thank you for your time. Thanks for being a guest on the Mindwell podcast. And we're looking forward to seeing many more innovative companies learning from you and many innovations coming to the market through this great process that you've developed. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.